It's not Simon making it up again. We do need to do this and we need to refresh it each year. So that's the reason we bring it to you. Fundamental changes are pretty much cosmetic. They refer to the international auditing standards rather than the city standards, because that's what we've changed over the last year or so. Key points in the report, or indeed in the charter itself: the mandate, the key things on independence, the way that the management of the audit is undertaken. Key lines of inquiry, and I think that's split into 14 sub key lines of inquiry that you're used to seeing. Yeah. So that's remained the same number. Now then, at that meeting in June, key lines of inquiry, if we want to develop that for 14, that's then we can come back to key lines of inquiry options that we could actually expand into different areas of activity. But for the current report that we're working on, that's all working fine. We're working on the same 14 areas that we did in the past, and that's developing that we could actually expand into different areas of activity in the future. Is for are there other any areas we want to expand to? As you all working fine. We're working on the same 14 areas that we did.
You know, it's all about making your job easier as far as your auditors and handing the responsibility to the staff who are running those areas.
And I think there's going to be an interesting discussion when we come to June, because we could use the assurance map to prepare ourselves for local government review. Because part of my strategy in terms of the planning going forward,
you mean local government reform?
Going forward, is to make sure that our systems and processes are robust before entering into that transition. And that, I think, is something we could start to look at, the assurance mapping process and the coverage in the plans after this one that's on the agenda towards the later on in the year, to make sure that the processes and systems working towards that transition time are solid and sound. So that might mean that we reiterate some work that's on the agenda, key financial systems, the systems on asset management, just to make sure that they are sound and valid before we actually get into that arena. So assurance mapping could quite happily nicely fit into that. Perhaps I'll touch more on that when we get to the two.
Thank you, Simon. Any further questions? Okay, we will now move to vote on the recommendation of page 6 of the agenda pack. Thank you, Simon. Is that agreed? Any further questions? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 5, audit, internal audit. Internal audit term 2 progress and term 1 plan 26-27. I formally move the recommendation included on page 25 of the agenda pack.
I second that, Chair, and to reserve the right.
I didn't quite finish.
I don't know what she's moving.
Do you have a second there?
I'm jumping at
He's very keen. The committee notes the outcome of the internal audit work carried out in term 2 25-26 and the planned coverage of internal audit work in term 1 of 26-27 to be progressed to help deliver assurance to the committee in priority areas. Do I have a second, please?
I'm very happy to second that and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will now hand over to Simon Lacey to introduce the report.
Thank you again, Chair. As you know, members now familiar with the termly reporting process we have. The first part of this report reflects on the work that the team has undertaken, so the termly work delivered. And I think we raised at the previous committee, we've been struggling a little bit with resources, but we've managed to actually still deliver. And I think that's the most pleasing thing for me. And I pass my thanks on to the rest of the team involved, that despite those shortage in resources, we've still managed to actually produce bar one report. So by looking at Appendix 1, we are down on the number of days, but actually the number of jobs we've actually exceeded what we should have done. So that in proportion, if you look at it. So I'm really pleased that's happened. In terms of that, I can't really say much more in terms of delivery, but the second part of the actual report, which looks about the plan, we've hopefully recruited a new person starting late this month, which will help with the number of days that are in the plan going forward. I've been deliberately prudent, and at the moment I've left those resources out of the term 1 plan, so you'll see that the linear progression in terms of the number of days available. When and if this succeeds in coming to us, we've got work ready for them to do, which is actually incorporated into the plan, as you see. So I'm hoping that next time we come to the reporting, we'll actually have a better position and actually have some more resources available to do even more work coverage. But irrespective of that, again, we've reprioritised the work that we do in that plan to reflect the resources we've got. So looking at Appendix 2, members will be assured that as we work through the range of activity, the governance framework's key priority to us, and we don't slack on any of that, and we focus on that. And quite rightly, as Councillor Lawton picked up earlier, the assurance mapping is a key fundamental to that, and that's why it's in that plan and will stay in that plan. The first term of any year is traditionally heavy on claims and certification work. That's because you've just had your year end and you're coming into where we have to do some work to certify the grants and claims that the council receives for other external bodies. So in terms of that column on certification assurance, that's heavily loaded that term because we have to. It's that time of the year to do that. So as we've done before, we've kept the focus on the counter fraud activity. That's a must do, and we keep that in place. So then the balancing position is the assurance work that we've got left to do within those remaining items that's shown on the assurance column. In addition to that, as you're aware, we do work for the Fire Authority, and we need to make sure that year-end work is complete, so we've got days in for that as well. So in effect, that gives us some coverage going forward in terms of our plan. So you'll see also there's a planned activity with 0 days. That's when our new starter comes, that's going to be their first job. That's on the shelf, ready to go, and we can actually pick it up. But again, I've been prudent, I've not added that into that perspective yet. And then just to pick up on the latter point I made in terms of the previous item, in the forward plan, you'll see we've got local government reorganisation. So we want to start looking at what we can do for the council to make sure we're in the right position with our systems and processes as we go into that new dimension.
Okay. Thank you very much, Simon. So I'd now like to invite the views and questions from members, please.
I've got a comment, if I may, Simon. On LGR, I'm pleased to see that you're on it. I wouldn't expect anything else.
No.
Just a word of warning, really. 1 or 2 of the districts and boroughs that we will obviously be taking over have had considerable financial issues as far as, in inverted commas, money being misappropriated, etc., etc. I'm just, not giving you the heads up, but just warning you, you are going to have to look at those areas very, very closely as you take them over. Otherwise, the new authority will take the hit when the previous authority should be held responsible.
Yeah. Just for your assurance as members of this group, for the last 6 months we've been engaged with the county's audit network. So our peers pick this up overseas. We've got a view across most of the counties that are going through the same reorganisation. We've shared common practice with that, and we followed some of the LGA's preparation work in terms of being set up for these transfers, etc. Part of that network also has colleagues that have already gone through this process. So part of my network is with people in Yorkshire, Cheshire, and Northamptonshire, our local peers that have gone through that. And I also know those from previous work. I've worked with them as individuals personally as well. So picking up experience from that. And now one of those things, there are others, one of those things is that bit about your system's readiness, making sure your systems are ready to transfer. And then there will be then the day 1 to 1,000, as we've called it, once we get past the 1st of April. We've got a plan for day 1 to 1,000 because not all systems can be compatible from day 2. They will take time to be amalgamated and merged depending on how that works. So we've already got insight from that, we've already got knowledge from that. And another piece of work that all of the counties involved in these transfers have done at the moment is we've already mapped all of our districts in terms of what their teams look like, what their groups look like, and indeed within Nottinghamshire, who are their external private sector providers. So we know who they are, and that gives us in a good position to be ready to, in fact, pick up where those things and what we would need to do. And we're also aware that we're conscious of there are services that we as the county's audit team don't do. So we need to make sure we've got that experience. Council tax, revs and bends, housing, they're not on our daily radar. So we need to make sure the team and the group, we do recruitment, we get some exposure to those particular aspects that may be useful in the future as well. So that's all part of that strategy. We brought a couple of meetings back to start to think of the skill mix we will actually need in 2 years, 3 years time. So yeah, that's just some background for you.
Thank you, Simon. Any further questions? Sorry, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chairman. So I was at East Midlands Council on Friday, and that's a really good talk by Tony Ricardo, given his experience having been through LGR and the experience they've had at some councils, and what his main sort of advice was to make sure that we are completely ready for that transition in terms of all the files back system. He's got horror stories of other councils he was giving where they couldn't find, example, to defend cases out of social care and children could no longer find the records, and there was that culture still of separate councils because they hadn't done any of that preparation work behind the scenes. Everyone was still thinking, oh no, that's X council, that's Y council, and to be honest, the council still, this one council example gave 2 years on, still we're in massive issues and financially and culture because they've not thought that. So I know you're doing the work behind it, we all know. I think just for public transparency in terms of future meetings, it'd be good just to sort of give that update in terms of where we're up to and where the other councils are as well. So again, it's been clear what the conversation are with those district councils, especially when after we get the decision due July, if we do, and in terms of what we're doing around there. Because again, I know that work's been done, okay, but I think we all know as a committee, it's just that public transparency. So if something does happen in a year, 2 years time, and the new authority, no one can say, oh, X, Y, Z, it's on a public record what you've done and the preparation and as council we've done to get to the point we need to be at.
Thank you for that insight, and it's really sparked a reaction from me. Yes.
Yeah.
One of the sessions we had at the Midland Counties group from the peers that have been through it was this is what you don't want to do in session, and this is the things you want to be aware of, because an organisation that was established 2 years ago that still haven't done a bank rec, hang on, what's happening? Organisations that still run 5 or 6 individual benefit systems because they haven't amalgamated, and because there isn't the capacity to amalgamate, they are issues. So it was a really interesting session of the please don't go down this road. So that's a really insightful thing we can get from our peers. That's exactly why we want to be engaged in that process. And anything you can pick up as members from that arena that you're involved in, that would be really useful insight to pick up as well. So please keep us in the loop on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we'll now move to the vote on the recommendation on page 25 of your agenda pack. All those in favour? Is that agreed? Yeah, brilliant, thank you. No against, no abstentions. Moving to agenda item 6, which is audit, follow-up of internal audit recommendations, 6th monthly update. I formally move the recommendations included on page 33 of the agenda pack that the committee note the content of the report and the progress made against the internal audit recommendations. a further progress report and an update on those actions outstanding be included in the next 6 monthly review. Do I have a seconder, please?
Most certainly, I second that and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll now hand over to Simon Lacey to introduce the report.
Thank you again. Again, now, I think members have seen a couple of these now follow-up reports. Just as background, these are fundamental reports that we as internal audit do. Part of our standards, again, is to make sure that recommendations, when they're made, are implemented by management, and we follow that up. Just to reiterate, the key thing here is that this is the recommendations to management that they follow up. This is not that Simon has to implement these recommendations himself. This is for me to check that management have done what they said they were going to do and hold them to account to that. And then we bring any messages back that we think are fundamental if it's not being taken. So we move in, and what we do in terms of the audit, just again as a reminder, our recommendations are prioritised in actions, priority 1, priority 2. So the first part of the report talks around how those priority 1 actions are being implemented. At the moment, we've got a really nice position. We've got about 93% of those are actually being implemented on time, correctly. And then when there are a priority 1, because they're high priority, we'll actually beam back into that service and audited the transactions, or the records, or the new documents to make sure they physically exist and have been done. The report then picks out any of those that are still overdue. And thankfully for this table, and indeed the appendices for me, is getting thinner and thinner. So there's actually more being implemented. So that's a really nice thing to see. And indeed, some of those, it's only a couple of reports or a couple of areas where if they were implemented completely, then you would halve the number of recommendations that are outstanding. So that again is a really good position from me. And then finally, we've got the appendices, priority 2 recommendations. Again, you've got a really high percentage of priority 2 recommendations being implemented. Over 90% is a really good achievement. And then just finally, you've got the summary on appendix 1. We know there are some items in there that are over a few years old, but we have taken that and revisited those, and we get insurance from management that management are doing something around that. So again, we've done what we need to do. So if there's any other areas that need to be escalated or to be checked further, it needs the committee, and quite happily arrange for that to be for service managers to come and explain what they're doing in relation to those implementation of recommendations. But from my perspective, the 6-month review has got 93% of the recommendations in place. We know the ones that are still being worked on. We've had updates on them, and that's where we are today. So I'm taking comfort that we are, as an organisation, responding to those recommendations.
Thank you, Simon. That's a really positive position, so thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite views and questions from members, please. Councillor Wilson.
It's me again. Simon, I'm going to talk on agenda item 10, really, which is where it's talking about governance arrangements and arm's length organisation. I'll make it absolutely clear. This is, I'm not being inadvertent, I could be, but I'm not being political on this particular issue. My first question is, who audits VIA? And then my second question is, and the reason why I'm saying that, if it's not us, then we need to see that those audits trail of that organisation, particularly on the fact that they cancelled 6 resurfacing schemes. So they were obviously over budgeted to an enormous amount. I don't know how much the exact cost of that, but I would think it must have run into the hundreds of thousands of pounds as far as that's concerned. And the second thing, the reason why I mention it is because of the performance over the winter months. And I'm going to mention that horrible word, potholes. But the condition of the highway has deteriorated dramatically, and it's obviously having an economic effect on people's ability to be able to get from A to B. I want to see who has audited them and what their comments are on the performance over the recent few months, really, and particularly it's the resurfacing I'm not worried about, but concerned about, because that is a significant amount of over budgeting. What you've got to take into account is we've gone out to residents and told them that their road is going to get resurfaced, and it hasn't been. And that is a complete letdown as far as they're concerned. Sorry, the 151 officer is going to answer my question. Go on, carry on.
If I may, Madam Chair. Firstly, you have to remember in terms of Waivers, it's a separate company, and therefore its audit is done externally. It's not to do with the local authority.
It's an ALBO. It's an ALBO, isn't it? Arm's length management organisation.
No, it's not. It's a separate company.
Right.
So as a consequence of company law, it has its own auditors, both internal and external auditors. And our auditors will get comfort from the external audit as done as the company is concerned as far as its figures in terms of how it's brought into our accounts. So that's to do with the finance bit. The second bit that you're referring to, Councillor Olsen, is around performance, and that would be a matter for scrutiny, and that would be probably for place scrutiny rather than for governance and ethics.
Thank you, Nigel Stevenson.
Thank you, Nigel.
Any further questions? Okay, I'd now like to, we'll now move to the vote on the recommendation at page 33 of the agenda pack. All those in favour?
Won't stop me asking.
Is that agreed? Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is audit, financial regulations, waivers 24-25. I formally move the recommendation included on page 44 of the agenda pack that the committee supports the detail contained in the report and the continued progress in keeping waivers to a minimum. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second that and reserve the right, Chair.
Thank you. I will now hand over to Nigel Stevenson and Kaj Kotorwa to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. So this is an annual report that is brought to Governance and Ethics Committee. So the council spend is all done under a legal framework, both within our internal financial regulations, but also under the Procurement Act and other procurement legislation we have to follow. But there are times where occasions where it's not possible to do those, where we've got unique services or we need continuity of service. So in those situations, officers may seek exemption to waive the financial regulations, and that's done through a waiver process. And those waivers are then considered by the Section 151 officer. So over the page, you can see on the table the value and number of waivers that we've had in 24-25, which have only been a slight increase to what we had last year. And what I really wanted to highlight is that the spend of approved waivers is only 1% of the council's total expenditure. So we are doing every effort to try and keep those waivers to a minimum. Officers and managers in my team do a lot of work with departments and officers to ensure that new people are trained, the financial regulations are emphasised. We do a lot of forward planning on the procurement pipeline. And really an audit that was undertaken by Simon's team on the controls that we have on the financial regulation process showed that there's substantial assurance and strong controls within the process that we have within the council. But I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kaj. So I'd like to invite views and questions from members, please. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. I won't press the microphone because it appears not to be working. The waiver process is important. And I'm sure we've all heard the horror stories. For example, the monitoring officer who used to be in Mansfield who went through a contract with a company owned by the leader's wife. I'm not saying that happens here, but there are some quite big contracts where a waiver has been agreed. I mean, for example, number 21, residential care homes variation, that's a £3.2 million contract. And it strikes me that if it had been planned for properly, they wouldn't have needed to apply for a waiver. They could have done the procurement process within time. Maybe, I'm sure it's not your fault personally, but maybe you comment on that. The second thing, if I may stray into it, I did raise a question back in October about whether a waiver was obtained with regard to the purchase of flags and flagpoles. I've not actually had a response, so I appreciate that's 25-26, but I wonder if the officer could tell us whether that has been or is going through a waiver process, but obviously that happened quite quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So your question about the kind of high value waiver that we've had for line item number 21. So we have a forward plan of pipeline projects that we do. Children's residential care home was one of them. As we started the market engagement and the specification and pulling the procurement process together, we had to engage with a number of different other areas. There were some issues that we needed to work through. The spec needed to be slightly broader, and that occasionally does happen in situations like that, where we start working these through and we say, well, actually, we're looking at our spend. There's a lot of requests that are coming in for children who need specialist provision around speech and language therapy, etc. Oh, we're out to tender for this shortly. Can we explore bringing that in, and how can we widen the scope of the tender process? So in a situation like this one, it's a statutory service. We needed to carry on the provision. So the request was put into the section 151 to say, well, actually, can we have a 6-month extension while we broaden the scope of that contract and the specification, and the tender exercise is completed. So and for that one, I can confirm that 6 months waiver was granted, that procurement was completed, and a new contract is in place. So we do absolutely have those services planned for, but in some situations where we take the opportunity to widen the scope where we can, where we're getting a lot of requests coming in, and if there's an opportunity to consolidate that spend, we will do.
And there's, if I may, there's benefits from that in terms of, because we want people to actually get their value of their services through a contract, rather than spot contracting outside the market, which would be more expensive. So it was worth the pause, because we know we'd get greater value by the services being in a contractual relationship rather than the odd contract, spot contract. So it was worth the waiver for the 6-month period while that process was done correctly to widen the contract. So you're absolutely right to question those, because that's what you get the why. It's the why. We sort of we can put in terms of what we think is the reason, but it doesn't necessarily get to the understanding in terms of so why. So you're absolutely right to ask that question. On your other question, which is around the flags, the contract was between ourselves and Via, and since Via is a tackle company, no waiver was required because it was compliant procurement.
Thank you, Nigel Stevenson. Any further questions? Okay, so we'll move to the vote on the recommendation at page 44 of the agenda pack. All those in favour? Okay, I think that's agreed. So now we move to item 8 of the agenda, which is the Constitution review. And I formally move the recommendation included on page 62 of the agenda pack, that the outcomes of the considerations of the cross-party Constitution Review Working Group, as outlined in Appendix A to the report, be noted. That the proposed changes to the Constitution as detailed in Appendix B to the report be recommended to full council for approval. And that further reports on the outcomes of the ongoing work of the Constitution Review Working Group be submitted to future meetings of the committee as appropriate. Do I have a seconder, please?
You, Chair, happy to second and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I will now hand over to Marge Toward and Keith Ford to introduce the report.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. So this report today presents the first outcomes of the cross-party working group set up by full council in May 2025 with an overarching aim of improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the council's constitution and decision-making processes. And the working group has met 4 times to date. The dates are included within the report and the attendance at those. I think it's fair to say there was good cross-party involvement in the process, both through attendance at the meetings and by working group members feeding in issues outside of the meetings. Proposed changes are informed by best practice from elsewhere, with members asking officers to research equivalent arrangements at a wide range of councils, as detailed in paragraphs 5 to 7 of the report. The changes presented today are centred largely around the full council procedure rules, and the amendments are intended to enable greater alignment with the practice of other councils that are not really experiencing the kind of issues we've had at full council meetings, whereby business, primarily motions, can often be deferred to future meetings due to a lack of time on the day. And that's despite our meetings regularly taking upwards of 5.5 hours. It's worth noting that the working group looked at a wide range of issues and agreed to retain any current practice which members felt was already fit for purpose. So the range of issues and options considered are summarised in the table in Appendix A. And I think it's also worth underlining that members reached a consensus view on the vast majority of the issues considered and helped to shape the proposals with many suggestions of their own. The amended full council procedure rules, including an entirely new section that introduces a protocol for the appointment of honorary aldermen, will include Appendix B to the report. And Appendix C is attached for information at this stage and will be used to inform the proposed review of the committee's name in terms of reference as detailed in section 3.5 of the table in Appendix C. But on that, Chair, I'm happy to answer any queries that members may have.
Thank you, Keith. So I will now like to invite views and questions from members. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, so thank you, Chairman. I mean, obviously, I attended the vast majority of the working groups bar one, which Councillor Lawton went to in my place. I suppose for me, went to those in good faith. And obviously, there's a lot of members who from the lead group obviously come and work with us, come and talk to us. That's what we came to do, try to have that civil discussion to compromise certain areas, because a lot they weren't happy with, but willing to compromise. I suppose for me, the big issue for me is the supplementary questions part. So as in the notes, there was an agreed approach that was raised in the meeting. We then told us, can we go away and looked at? Then the first we knew about, well, I knew about, especially as a member of the group and as business manager for my group, was when the papers were published, and the recommendations actually went a lot further than what was ever discussed in those meetings. And so that's where you lose faith in the process, where again, you can put whatever recommendation you like, but at least having the courtesy to come and have the discussion and say why it was looked at and decided why it couldn't go ahead, especially when the members in the room agreed to that, including not just from our group or the opposition. So that's my main concern with this completely, that it's just been basically like it was just a talking shop and was done to tick a box rather than actually take meaningful views in. And so as myself and as our group, we're going to be proposing an amendment to item 2 on the recommendations, which I'm happy to give the written copy across to officers for the minutes, but the proposal to make written responses to the default for supplementary questions be amended to retain 60 seconds for oral response in the meeting, with written follow-up only where additional details required, and that the revised debate and question arrangement be subject to a formal review after 12 months of operation, with a report to Governance and Ethics Committee assessing the impact on member participation, number of motions deferred, the operation of supplementary question arrangements, feedback from all political groups, and any unintended consequences for scrutiny and accountability. To me, the first part of that, in terms of bringing additional questions in, is what was, the supplementary questions back is what we agreed. And I'll say the same thing I said in the working group, which is the impression you're giving to the public and to some of us as councillors is your committee chairman and cabinet members you don't trust to answer the questions. I'm sure that isn't the case, but that's the impression you are giving out to the public, that well, take away supplementary, you don't trust the thinking on the feet and actually people knowing the answers. And as a former cabinet member for a year, of course it was tricky when you thought, what am I going to be asked now? Supplementary. You do your research, do your preparation, and you answer it, whether it's a good answer or not. That's the nature of the beast. But being in that situation, so I can actually say that, I think for democracy that should be brought back in. And the 12 months review, I think that's really important, because let's see if it works, if it doesn't work, and then we review from there. If the supplementary still doesn't work, the whole group can look at it again and review. But that's my real concern with what happened in that meeting. So that's where, as a group, we're really concerned that the process hasn't been done correctly, and that would not be taken to the correct views. And so I say I'm more happy to now propose that amendment to item 2, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. So do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Second that.
Okay, thank you.
Have you got it in writing?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
It was
Really helpful.
Yeah, I'm reading it.
No, I'm just asking if there's sufficient numbers.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a few copies. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I thought there was enough copies there. I don't know where the more. That will be next after this.
There you go.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say whether it's a valid amendment or not.
Yes, please. Well, I don't know if those
Councillor Wheeler, could you just help? Is this what you originally proposed
Yeah, this is item 2. Yeah, that's what's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2. Yeah.
in the group? Yeah.
The first part was, yeah.
Yeah.
The second part, in terms of the 12-month review,
Okay,
that's
so
what we're
that's
willing to put in as a compromise to say if that's worked or not, because I haven't reviewed it.
We did discuss this in the working group. Yeah. So I think it's a valid amendment. We had it moved and seconded. So I think we would do would be to debate that and then decide whether it's approved or not, and then go back to the substantive motion at that point. Yeah.
And just to say, in terms of the debate within the working group, it's covered there in 1.2 in the table there, so
Yeah.
in the second bullet point.
Okay, so I now propose that we debate and question the amendment.
Yeah. So who wants to?
Sorry, I didn't quite see whose hand went up first. Councillor Walker-Gurley.
So Councillor Wheeler mentioned the public perception of, removing this from full council. I would like to propose the counter argument of, for myself being an elected member for only 10 months, so basically still see myself as a member of the public. I find it very frustrating, the political nature, and without going too deep, I would say sometimes it gets really ridiculous. For example, I was asked a question in full council: do you believe in best value duty, by a member who's in here, just to set up a secondary question. And I mean, honestly, to ask that type of question, that level of question as an initial question for me, as a member of the public, I don't find that to be conducive to a productive environment. I think it does get really out of hand and unnecessary at times in the full council chamber. So again, public perception is important. We're all elected public servants, and for me, I would say there's a counter argument to that point.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Gurley. Councillor Clark's hand went up.
Well, Chairman, wow. So public perception is about councillors. The public expects councillors to have knowledge of what they're talking about. And any cabinet member that's asked a question on a supplementary, I would expect them to have knowledge of the subject to be able to answer a supplementary question that relates to their portfolio. And to claim that a cabinet member is a member of the public and unable to answer a question about the portfolio for which they've been appointed at quite a substantial allowance, I would expect them to have the background knowledge to be able to answer a supplementary question on their portfolio. The Reform Party were elected on the basis of representing the residents and having engagement and popularity with the residents, and therefore I would expect them to be able to answer questions that the residents quite legitimately would be interested in. So I do not agree at all
with saying, oh, well, we can't answer supplementary questions verbally in the meeting, because basically what appears to be being said is that, well, we haven't got the knowledge to be able to answer those questions. So we need somebody else to tell us what the answer is going to be. We can't answer them straight away. I think this really is taking away the accountability and the challenge, and that's the purpose of council meetings, is to be able to challenge on behalf of the residents.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Sorry, Councillor Pearson, we had Councillor Cullen first.
Thank you. I'll use my best loud voice, which I have got, as you all know. So, first of all, we're all members of the public. We are all members of the public, but we're elected councillors. We are actually politicians, and like it or not, that is what we are. In another council chamber, I'm a portfolio holder, and supplementary questions are the dread of every meeting, because you never know what's coming, and you know the opposition are going to try and trip you up. And as a portfolio holder in another council, I only get paid a few quid a year to know my subject properly, but guess what I do? And if it's your job to know your subject, then you must know your subject. The optics, I'm telling you all, the optics for the public of taking supplementary questions out tells people that you don't know what you're doing. You need an officer of the council to answer your questions for you, despite you're paid a great deal of public money. I couldn't possibly support an amendment to take away supplementary questions. And guess what? I know how horrible it is. But guess what? You have to do it. It's part of the job that you are paid to do. So that's my view on that. On this amendment, that's my view. I've got views on other things, but on this amendment, I won't be a part of agreeing to take supplement questions out.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Sorry, Councillor Walker-Gurley, there was a Councillor Pearson before you.
Thank you, Chair. Just really to support what my colleague Councillor Cullen and Councillor Clark have said. What we have proposed by way of amendment is really something quite moderate. We're talking about 60 seconds. I think the risk is if you follow what's been proposed within a substantive motion, you're creating something very bureaucratic where you've got periods of 5 working days and 10 working days. What we're talking about is something that's quite straightforward. If it's something that is very complex and requires a lengthy answer, then obviously the individual answering that will be able to say, I'm sorry, I can't deal with that within the time available. We have to deal with it in a more detailed manner. But you know what's proposed is really, I think, the most moderate, and I think reflects what we understood to be the consensus within the working party that somehow got lost along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Walker-Gurley.
I'm just going to go back again to what I was trying to get my point across. So I understand, that we should know our work, and we do. But the optics of asking a question like, do you believe in best value duty, undermines what we're doing here. That is seriously just to follow up and ask a specific question when we have 1,000 plots of land, 700 buildings, to then go in after that first initial question and ask a follow-up about a specific disposal. It's again, the optics of that tells the public that we don't actually care about challenging our as the opposition, our councillors. We actually care about making them look silly so we can snip it and put it on Facebook. That's what that message tells the public. So, there's definitely a middle ground, and I would love to have this conversation further at another time. Another point is that 10 months now I've been the portfolio holder. I've probably met with Councillor Wheeler and maybe one other member from the opposition. Again, our doors are always open. If you don't think we're competent, come and challenge me, come and sit down.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Gurley. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, sorry, if you just come back on the question and just to touch a bit about Councillor Walker-Gurley the first time about the picking secondary questions and keep the subject, we're actually covering that in the revision. So under point 47, it says disclose a single question should not contain a number of sub-elements or sub-questions. So hopefully that can deal with the issue of asking a question that's not the same subject. And also there is also the power of the chairman of the meeting to obviously intervene as well if they think there's strength in there. So I think that kind of covers that part, and that's why Councillor Pearson said it's spot on, which is we're trying to moderate it. I could have put a memo in that was wildly out and just to make a political point. It's not. It honestly isn't. It's about saying 60 seconds gives you that chance. As Councillor Pearson said, if it is a very complex question, you can do a brief summary to say it's a bit, I can't do it just in 60 seconds. I will come back to you. I think people would understand that. Also, puts more emphasis on people asking the questions to be. To really think through the question they're asking. If they do want an answer that meeting, they've got to be thinking about their supplementary to make sure it is going to get that answer. So having that in, I think, is a moderate way of making sure that we're still seeing democracy done. Because, like I said, does everyone want to leave at 2 o'clock taking on other things? Of course, you'd like to, on the first point of view, go, yeah, let's get the meeting done, etc. But we are paid allowances to be at council meetings. We are there to see democracy done. I mean, the public wants to know what is being done in their name, and the fact that we are giving it in due consideration. So to have the chance to ask these questions and make sure the question has been answered, because my worry is you get rid of supplementary, the answer you could give would be a completely different answer to the question. There's no rebuttal, no challenge. We see it in PMQs, let's be honest. How many times does someone actually answer the Prime Minister, no, it's the Prime Minister, every party, don't get me wrong, they're going back around to the question properly. I can probably count one hand amount of time. So then people just lose that faith in that process. But having a supplementary back at least then gives that public to know we are taking it seriously and giving that answers back. So that's why I really would like this to be put back in. And like I say, we'll review it all in 12 months. If it's not working correctly, gives the committee the chance on the working group, if it's reset up, to look at it and tweak it again. Nothing can't be changed, nothing can't be altered. That's the beauty of the process we have. So I'm hoping people can get behind the amendment and see the spirit it's been trying to make, which is to not make political points, to actually make it so that we are getting the balance right between asking the right questions, and again to hopefully to actually take away some of the politics out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weir. Councillor Lawton.
Yeah, keep trying to press the button. The whole idea, politics is adversarial. It is in inverted commas, a democratic process that is designed to create a debate. That debate, and sometimes is uncomfortable. It's a fact of life. You cannot alter it. And just to remove supplementary questions because you find it uncomfortable, the fact that somebody is asking a question that you don't like has got absolutely no reason, no rationale to removing it completely. You know, the number of times I've been in the chamber where cabinet members have had to say, well, actually, I haven't the answer to your question. I will give you a written answer. You have that ability to be able to do that as a cabinet member who's been asked a question. I mean, I'm with Councillor Steve Carr on this one. You know, I'm with Councillor Steve Carr on this one. It's not something to be frightened of. It's something to be embraced. It's something to enjoy. It's part and parcel of full council. I like to get my blood up. That's what I do. That's how I see the meeting through. That's what gets me from one end to the other. Is me standing up and calling somebody a pig to a dog. But the fact of the matter is, I never ever attack the man. I always attack the ball, and that is something Reform need to learn. You need to attack the ball, and I always attack the ball, and my supplementaries always attack the ball. You know, and taking it away is anti-democratic. Yeah, it is a thin end of the wedge. It is dangerous what you are proposing to do. So I will not be supporting this because it's anti-democratic. For that exact reason, it does not allow people to cross-examine other politicians in the chamber, and that is wrong. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Back to Councillor Walker-Gurley.
Yeah, I think snipping up bits and pieces out of context and manipulating the public on social media is anti-democratic, personally. I get my entertainment elsewhere, not at full council. We're here for the public, and I think a debate for the sake of winning an argument, which is what the debates in full council are, winning an argument is not in the public interest. I think deliberation, where you come together and actually discuss to deliberate and come to a conclusion that benefits the rest of the public, not just winning an argument, is more what we should be doing. And I don't think the public care about who wins an argument and who gets the best snippets on Facebook.
Thank you, Councillor Walker-Gurley. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I'll use this, it's probably no good. But anyway, yeah, I can understand all the arguments. I can understand Bruce. I know Bruce from years ago. I know what he's like, and he is what he is. He's fair. But a list of councils in the report where we've consulted, many of those, well, some of those councils don't allow questions at all. Many of those councils don't allow supplementary questions. We're allowing supplementary questions. Punching Judy politics is a phrase that was introduced to me by a former mayor of Mansfield, Terry Eddington. Asking a question and then trying to follow it up with a supplementary gotcha question, just so you can try and put someone on the spot. Why don't you just ask the question? Why do you have to follow the gotcha question? Why just ask the question you want answering? If the person concerned can't answer it, there's your gotcha moment, if you like. But really, I think to ask a question, and if you do have a supplementary, to follow it up with a written request, I can't see a problem with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Matthews was next.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of this, and you've actually stole my thunder there, Martin. That perhaps more thought should be put into the question you want to ask, so you've got all your answers from the original question. I think also what Councillor Wright said, 21 councils, I think you wrote down you commented on. So I think if you ask 21 different councils, another 21 different councils, you'd perhaps get 21 different answers to the one that Bruce has got and that we've got. So sadly, I don't think any of us are going to agree on this if we talk to this. But I generally think, in my own personal view, I'm not frightened of any questions, and you know, if I make a cock up of it, I'm happy to put my hand up and say I made a cock up. But I do generally think that there should be more emphasis on the original question that's given, and it gives the person giving the question to have the time to prepare a question, and the person who's going to accept the question has been given the time to prepare for the question. So then that works both ways. Just my view. So
thank you, Councillor Matthews, and I have to concur. I agree with everything that's been said around the table so far this morning. Sorry, did I see Councillor Lawton's hand go up again?
I'm just going to. It's Councillor Walker-Gurley. Councillor Walker-Gurley. The Labour Party were in charge. They were doing the local minerals plan. I was given responsibility of holding the Labour Party to account. What they were doing was they were going to identify 4 sites across the county for gravel extraction, which was patently not needed on the back of extraction rates and recycling amounts. I was given the job of holding the Labour Party to account and changing the local minerals plan. It took a lot of doing, but eventually we won. And as a result, the whole of the local minerals plan, which is a massive document for this council, was changed. And it was changed for the better. Well and behold, the recycling rates in the county shot up, and there was no requirement for sand and gravel. That saved 3 sites across the county. That is what we're talking about. We're talking about scrutiny. I know it may be in a macro or micro level. I'm not really interested. Supplementaries gives us the opportunity to be able to identify issues that affect our residents. Simple question. Simple. It's a simple point. And what you are doing is removing that right. I'm really not interested in what 30 councillors have got to say, Martin. I'm not interested. I'm interested in Nottinghamshire. And I'm interested, I tell you what I'm interested in. I'm interested in holding you lot to account. That's my job. And what you're doing is trying to remove me one of the tools I use to hold you to account. And that is wrong. That is anti-democratic. Sorry, but that's where I stand on it.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Hang on, sorry, I've got Councillor John next.
I just want to ask a question. I wanted to stick to the motion, but not to the amendment. Do I have to wait for the debate to come?
Yes. Councillor Cullen next.
Yes, or Carr, whichever one today.
Madam Carr.
Okay.
Madam Carr.
There is one of those. I suppose the thing for me is, over in the other chamber I'm in, which is Broxtowe, in case any of you don't know, we removed the need to submit written questions beforehand because we recognised that, and it's been said here today, you can ask a full question in your first question, and then, we know, doing this a long time, the answer you get in the council chamber is the officer's written answer that the member reads out. If you remove the need for written questions and people could ask the question they wanted to ask, then there would probably be no need for supplementary questions because you could ask the question you wanted to ask to know on behalf of the public whether the cabinet member knew the answer to the question that you were asking and what their views were on it. Because we know when we put forward a written question, we know the answer we're going to get is an answer that's been crafted in advance. The supplementary question gives us the opportunity to see if the cabinet member can answer a question on their subject without having somebody else do their job for them. And that's why there's two ways of doing this. Either remove the need for written questions or retain the ability for supplementary questions. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Councillor Pearson.
Just really to follow up on what Councillor White and what Councillor Matthews was saying, and I do respect what's been said. I think the difficulty is you don't necessarily know what the supplementary question needs to be, depending on the answer that you get to the main question. So inevitably, you are moving with it and you're getting to the nub of the issue. It's not necessarily to trip people up or cause problems. It's to actually get a proper answer to the question. And you just don't know that until you get the answer to the main question itself. And, and that would apply whichever party was in force. The trouble is, what we're doing here today will carry on for many years. So it's not a question of reform being in power in 2026. It's a question of, Labour in power in 2029 or something. We just don't know. So I think it's kind of dangerous to sort of set this precedent.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, Councillor Pearson just touched on it there. I know we're going a bit off topic to say it's because of a gotcha, supplementary, etc. Well, as I said before, the chairman has got that prerogative to step in on that one there. When we talked about the comparison to other councils, I understand why we've gone to it. Remember, a lot of those councils are district councils. They're not, a lot of it isn't like for like in terms of the ones asked. And I think we've just got to bear that in mind with the supplementaries there. If councils aren't asking a supplementary in the meeting there, you're then just going to get one-sided debate where it is on, to take away the issue about is it on Facebook or other social media sites. Sorry, available in case BBC are watching this. We've got to be. It actually gives you the chance as committee chairman and cabinet members to give your answer, as your chance to write to reply with that answer in the supplementary there and then. You've got the 6 seconds or the written one to do. If not, all you're going to have is like I said, the assumption online you don't know the answer, and people online asking, saying this is the question I would have asked, but they don't have the courage to answer it or malarkey like that. So that's what I really hope people can see is what it is meant to be, which is to give you the chance, the lead administration, whoever the party is, to answer the question there, to have the ability, and with the other provision in there to give a bit more strength in terms of the question that can be asked, and with the chairman to have that prerogative. I really think this is a good balanced way to address this all the way around. So, like I say, just to really finish there, I really hope people can see it in the spirit it's meant to be, which is to get that balance, and it's actually good to help. Honestly, I'm listening to it, it's actually to help the lead group as well with this, because I actually think by taking it away, you are going to create a rock for your own back on it. So I really would ask you to look at it and take that consideration into the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Sorry, Councillor Clark has a question as well.
Yeah, well, quite some time ago. I actually welcome what Councillor Matthews said, actually. He used the word frightened, and he said he wasn't frightened of the questions, and that's quite right. because if you're on top of your brief and you know the policy, then you shouldn't be frightened. And if there is a very technical part to a supplementary question, then as Councillor Matthews said, you said, sorry, that's very detailed, very technical. I'm going to have to come back to you with a written answer, which is absolutely fair enough. But where it's a question, it's not a technical question, if it's a question of policy, then the Cabinet member should have that background knowledge available to be able to answer that question. So absolutely, it is absolutely anti-democratic, because the public will want to know the answers, and if you don't have a supplementary, then the ability is there that there's an original question, and then the answer doesn't answer that original question at all. So the purpose of the supplementary is to develop the original question and then hope that there is a proper answer given to that supplementary question after a very formulaic, hypothetical or technical answer is given originally. So what is the ruling group frightened of? I'll throw Councillor Matthews' words back at him. What on earth are the ruling group frightened of in being able to have knowledge of their briefs? It's quite wrong to say, oh, this is all about a debate. Question and answers are not debates. They are a question, and hopefully there is going to be a knowledgeable answer to it. And that knowledgeable answer comes from the portfolio holders having knowledge of their brief and being on top of their brief and knowing what their policies are. And they shouldn't be frightened of being able to answer those questions.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Are there any further questions with regards to the amendment? Yeah.
So I'm going to read out the amendment, so we're going to go to the vote now. This will be the next part of the procedure, to vote on the amendment. And I'm going to read out the amendment so you all know exactly what you're voting for. So the amendment is that the proposal to make written responses to the default for supplementary questions be amended to retain 60 seconds for oral responses in the meeting, with written follow-up only where additional detail is required. That the revised debate and question arrangements be subject to a formal review after 12 months of operation, with a report to Governance and Ethics Committee, assessing impact on member participation, the number of motions deferred, operation of supplementary question arrangements, feedback from all political groups, and any unintended consequences for scrutiny and accountability. The Chair is now going to ask you to vote on that amendment.
So yes, thank you, Marge. We will now move to the vote on the amendment. All those in favour?
Yeah.
All those against?
6.
No abstentions. Thank you. So we now go back to the original recommendation, the original motion. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Oh, well, I was going to speak on the original.
So can I just confirm procedurally? So that means that the amendment has fallen. So we will now go back to the substantive motion which we put in the report. And so speakers on that now.
Yeah. So I open the debate and questions for the original, and Councillor Clark is in there first, followed by.
Thank you, Chairman. So 1.2A. And there's here the suggestion to reduce the overall time limit to council questions from 60 to 45 minutes, which itself, again, reduces that ability for challenge, etc. And it's going to be a recurring theme, I'm afraid. What is the ruling group afraid of? Why are they not wanting to accept any scrutiny or challenge. I'm find it odd that as well that to limit the answers to the original questions to 3 minutes. So are you saying that the actual person answering, so the portfolio holder answering the question, has to limit themselves to 3 minutes, even if there is a fair amount to say regarding that? Moving on to section 1.5. Part A, and this relates to the time limit for speeches, and I'm amazed at this report of having spoken to other councils, because in another council, which I happen to have an awful lot to do with, we actually reduced some time ago, some years ago, we reduced the number, the time of speeches to 3 minutes, and it didn't work at all. Practically everybody complained about it, and in fact, it actually lengthened the debate because more time was spent with people complaining that, oh, I haven't had time to say everything I want to say. Why aren't I allowed to say it? And so it just didn't work at all, and it ended up a bit chaotic and a bit confusing. In 3 minutes, you cannot possibly properly develop an argument that you're wanting to put forward at all. And I will just, the most important thing of all, at the very end, 5.3, it refers to Chatham House rules. There's only one. It's the Chatham House rules. There aren't multiple ones, so that needs changing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Cullen.
Oh, I'll try. I'll try. Yeah, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, just, I mean, obviously, I apologise. I'm here substituting for Councillor Steve Carr, so this has probably been covered in previous meetings. But just for myself, I wanted to just ask about 1.1, recording of members leaving immediately to join the full council meetings. Because I've had, not me actually, but my husband when he was here at the council, occasion when he left a meeting to avoid being in a room when a vote was taken that he could have had an interest in, and it was failed to be recorded. And it was questioned later, and we had to spend actually around about £3,000 on a legal defence of that. And the outcome of that was he was exonerated, but it was found that him leaving the meeting hadn't been correctly recorded. And I just want to be absolutely sure, first of all, that that doesn't relate to anything like that. You know, that if somebody leaves a meeting and they don't want to be a part of a vote, it's absolutely clear that that's recorded properly, just because I've had experience of that before. The second thing I want to speak on is a proposal to reduce councillor speaking time, because at the moment, my group is quite small. Might not always be, but at the moment it's quite small. And for example, reducing the time to 3 and 5 minutes in a budget debate, for example, would mean that my entire group would have less time to speak in the entire debate than just one of us currently has. So it would disadvantage us greatly. But in general, I agree with what Councillor Clark said. 3 minutes is a very short period of time. And I will admit, it has frustrated me greatly, the 10-minute speeches and people having very long speeches and the same thing said over and over again by different people. That has frustrated me greatly since I've been a councillor here. But I think 3 minutes is very short.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Just to clarify, the 3 minutes is not for budget meetings.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at,
I did only get the papers.
Yeah.
Half hour before the meeting.
If you look at 1.5,
Yeah.
The 5 minutes that we're currently talking about, the 5 minutes that's get the words out, the suggestion. It's currently 10 minutes, and that's for speaking times in normal council meetings and the budget meetings. There's a different set of time limits, so it's 15 minutes from 30 minutes for budget proposals, and 10 minutes, which is the same for the seconder. 10 minutes for right of reply of mover, currently 15, 10 minutes for mover, currently 20. 5 minutes for right of reply. Yeah.
5. So down from 10 to 5. But it's still a percentage change for a group of only 3 though, you know. We would have 30 minutes and we'll be down to 15.
Get more members.
I'm trying.
There's an offer there from James.
No, you're not. Some are.
Sorry, Councillor Wright was next, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. 1.1, Teresa, well, Councillor Cullen. That was set up originally for a very good reason. I'm sure most members in this room will know that certain members of a different group who are barely represented on this council now used to leave the room for a long time and then come back and vote on it.
Oh.
So there you go. So that was why that's being dispensed with. If you don't wish to vote on a subject, abstain. That's another way around it. As regards 1.5, debate times, that was agreed across the board by the people who were present. No one objected. Labour side didn't object. The Conservative side didn't object, and Steve Gart wasn't there, I'm afraid.
It was just me coming up late with my.
So there you go.
If I'd have been there.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Pearson.
Just really on 4.2, I'm aware from recent council meetings that sometimes the chair has been concerned about the somewhat boisterous level of debate. Having said that, as I mentioned within the meeting, European Convention on Human Rights, whether you like it or not, does allow for freedom of speech. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the clarification that's going to be provided, perhaps the Montrose officer could speak about what steps are going to be taken. For example, is any external legal advice to be taken with regard to balancing the need for order within meetings with the importance of having freedom of speech for members?
Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Shall we do all the points at the end? Is that
Yeah.
what it is? Yeah. We'll just do it, go along.
It's easy just to address the points at the end.
I don't mind. How do you want to do it?
We'll address them at the end.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Walker-Geerling.
Yeah, again, for me, I wasn't on the working group for this. I'll just get that out there. And these are just my personal views, obviously, not necessarily the reasons why we're going through this as a party. I just think that from the Conservatives specifically that are sat in this room as well, I would ask a question, because you've asked a few to us. Why do you not want to focus your questions so that we can get on with the work that needs doing? I feel like there's so much posturing that goes on and talking to things that are not even relevant to the council, let alone, you know, the specific motion or whatever that we talk on. It's last full council was a perfect example where people were talking about, again, national politics completely separate from the agenda that was in front of us. So again, for me, I don't see the issue. We work in this building together. If you want to come and talk to any of us, we have freedom of speech 24 hours a day, not just in full council. You know, again, the posturing that goes on for me is not in the public interest whatsoever. So yeah, that's.
Thank you, Councillor
Churchill.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yes, briefly, I think just say, you know, we were willing, in the working group, I was willing to compromise, you know, in terms of things like the speaking time, etc. But again, that, as I said earlier in my speech, that kind of goes out the window when to compromise. But then the item that we discussed, and everyone in the group, again, no one did a vehement objection to say that we wouldn't, they weren't happy with keeping supplementary with what we proposed for 60 seconds, then to get that thrown in afterwards. So kind of that, so again, it's kind of contradictory there in terms of what was agreed that group, because the agreements of that group weren't taken into account with what the final paper is coming out here in front of us. In terms of the questions itself and going to, and the 45 minutes and the chance to answer them, I think also that's to be, if we are going to go on this and you're not going to have supplementary, there also has to be that agreement that on the order of questions, so that you're actually going to give that fair allowment to actually allow the questions to be asked, because, you know, in the past, when there have been some questions asked that did look quite, not controversial, but did look perhaps ones who didn't want to answer, they go to the bottom of the queue. And I'm not just saying that's this administration with previous ones as well. So if we are not going to have supplementary, there has to be that fairness, I think, in terms of what's submitted, and each group gets a chance to put this forward to have that well heard. Otherwise, again, it will give that impression that you don't want questions to be heard. So if that is going to be, I hope that is taken into account when the order of questions is put together as well, based on what we've just said there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Lawton.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I mean, changing motions, length of motions to 30 minutes just won't work. It won't give people the opportunity to be able to, it won't create an active debate. And I have to say, it makes me smile really, that, you know, your performance in the chamber as a politician matters. It is extremely important to your residents. It is extremely important to your group. And it is also extremely important to the debate. Your ability to be able to get your point across to everybody in that room and make your point. I know the chances that it's going to get voted down. I'm really not interested whether it's going to get voted down. It is my opportunity for, in inverted commas, you know, calling out, for example, if it's the budget, calling out Councillor Matthews. That's my chance. You know, that's me. That's the opportunity that I have. And restricting my ability to do it is wrong. It's just wrong. It's not. You won't. All you'll do is you won't create a debating chamber. Councillor Walker-Gurley, what are you frightened of? You know, some of the best orators in the world, Winston Churchill, he used to rattle on forever. His speeches used to be an hour and a half. You know, but he got his point across. He made his point of view be heard, and that is what you cannot be scared of. I mean, just to make the point that I'm actually going to support Councillor Wright with reference to the recording of full council. The reason why we did it was because it was the council chamber was being abused, and it was me actually. We did the constitution. I did it with you, Demand. We put it in, and it's no longer needed. It's not needed because people don't abuse it, so there's no necessity to do it. And I have to agree with Stephen over his human rights. It made me smile actually when he stood up and said it, because he was absolutely right. You know, trying to, in fact, your party actually tried to hijack a part of the constitution which was designed because one individual member brought a cake into full council and started cutting it up in slices and feeding his members. A lemon slice cake. You know, across the chamber. And that's why it was put in. It was nothing to do with leaflets or newspapers, holding newspapers up. You know, and you tried to hijack the constitution to be able to stop. You know, I don't know, keep curling. I thought it was actually it wasn't. It was. Yeah, it wasn't. I found it amusing. It was a bit pathetic, really, wasn't it? You know, to be fair. But at the end of the day, I mean, you will have picked up on where I'm coming from. You know, you've got to be extremely careful that you do not become anti-democratic, because it will bury you. Yeah. It won't bury us. It won't bury us, because we will find alternate ways of getting our message out there. You know, and this is why I was criticising you at full council over the appointment of deputy chairs. You know, what that did, you know, that was our avenue to get our point across to this administration. You remove that, Walker-Gurley turning around and saying, oh, my office door is always open. You can't go on the bloody corridor. My badge won't work. Exactly. You know, I'm never going to be able to get on the corridor unless I ring him up. But the point I'm trying to make is at the end of the day, there are set processes within this council. And those set processes have been honed over literally dozens of years to be able to create an active democratic process. You bury that democratic process, yeah, and the public will find out. And when the public find out, they won't vote for you. As simple as that. So this is why I'm arguing. I'm arguing not because I mean, do you really honestly think that we liked having Jason Dudrosny attacking us within the council chamber, but we allowed it? We allowed it, and we argued the case because we knew that if we suppressed it, then the public out there would look at it as a process to be able to restrict democracy. What you are doing with some of these proposals that Jonathan has evidently brought forward is suppressing democracy. And I keep trying to make the point. It is dangerous. What you are doing is wrong. And that's why I'm arguing, and I will be voting against it. And it's all well and good, Councillor Walker, you know, turning around and saying you're a member of the public. Well, you're not a member of the public. You are a cabinet member who is paid to do a job. And I am paid to do a job to hold you to account. And I will continue to do so. But you remove it. You remove your supplementary questions, which you are doing. Fine, that's no problem at all. But I'll find another way. And I can assure you, I won't be knocking on your door, okay? Trying to be drawn into a process. I'm not there for that. I am there to support my residents, and I will oppose you every step of the way if you are wrong. If you're right, I'll be the first person shouting from the rooftop, telling you you're right. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Wolf-Gurley.
Again, I'm just going to start off, appreciate all the comments there. I'd like to say that I'm not afraid of debate at all in any way. More than happy to have a debate anytime, whether that's in full council or anywhere else. My thing is that I think you guys, thanks very much for the warnings of what we should and shouldn't do. I think you guys have missed the lessons. You guys were not elected in May. You know, it's literally just last year. And I don't think you guys have learnt the lessons of why you're not on this side of the chamber. I don't think you've learnt them. So I'll give you some warnings. I think you need to realise that the public are not interested in all of this posturing and all of this back and forth. We are not the Prime Minister. We're not Winston Churchill. We're not expected to stand and speak for an hour and a half at local level. We're supposed to be doing the work for the people. That's what it is. And the appearance is real that you guys are more self-interested than actually doing the work for the people. And whether you can shake your head, that's fine. You know, I'm telling you, this is the perception that's out there in the public. I'm telling you that. So there's a warning from me. I think we should be working together. And again, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Walker-Gurley. I've got Councillor Clark next.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I've got some information for you, or if the monitoring officer could just check, but I was elected in May, as far as I'm aware, because I'm here. So I was elected. Councillor Lawton has just has reminded me about the 30 minutes reduction to 30 minutes. One thing that would never happen as a result of that is anybody moving that the vote be put because there's been enough debates on it, because in 30 minutes you can't possibly have enough debate, because by the time you've had proposer and seconder and anybody else amending it or whatever, there won't be any time left for any other speakers. So in actual fact, the ruling group are actually depriving their own members primarily, because out of the 41 members, probably only 2 or 3 will have enough time to speak or say anything within 30 minutes. So just taking Councillor Lawton's point, I could quite imagine that the ruling group's own electors will be saying, why on earth didn't you say something about X, Y or Z? Why didn't you speak up? And the answer is because, well, we were stifled. Debate was stifled. The ruling group don't want to listen to any debate. We just want to stop the debate and not allow people to have their say on behalf of the residents. We're back to the residents again. It's about them having that public perception that they have had the opportunity for their elected representatives to put their points of view. In 30 minutes, that will just not happen.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I've got Councillor John next.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak on a few things. One of them has already been spoken about, an amendment which I voted against, but to the motion about the public rights and the debating rights, debating rights within the full council. It is one of the very few times that the public get to see all the members together engaging in rigorous debate, and I think that's really important. As someone who tends to be quite petrified of talking, and when I was cabinet lead, I still welcomed questions. I was very well supported by my officers, and when it came to the supplementary questions, I took that as a challenge because I believe that I should be the best, most competent in my department to be able to lead it when it comes to oversight and leading on political priorities. I think it was really important for me to be able to push me to be well versed in my area of expertise, particularly as the finance reflects that, but also the position, and they publicly expect it. I would also say, to the point we've written a few things down, the Reform UK as our party's principles are heavily based on the philosophy of Preston Manning, who was an inspiration of mine, along with Danny Kruger. He talks about democratic accountability. I just want to quickly, I'll be brief, monitoring officer as well, and chair. Integrity, accountability, freedom, equality, and tolerance. Within that freedom, I count it as freedom of expression, but also freedom of thought, to engage with debate. So for me, those things are extremely important to our democracy, and we should be protecting those. That is the very core principles of Reform UK, and that's the reason why I joined this party. I also want to state that I'm thankful for all the officers that have done all the work, and the working group as well, guys coming together in order to form these suggestions for the Constitution. However, highlighting other councils, those who shut down debate, I don't think that's a good example. I think when we're looking to progress in democracy, we promise the people to deliver them something different when it comes to government. And I think we need to start from I call this the grassroots, ground level, if we want to be national. Sorry, I'm talking more politically in terms of national-wise, but I think preserving that is very important. Another reason why, one of the reasons I didn't vote for the amendment is because I have a few other points that I would like to suggest to the working groups. I think there probably could hopefully be more time to be able to consider. I've got 25 points that I'd like to bring. I know I did mention it to Democratic Services briefly earlier today, and I did mention that on the previous things. But I'd like to, I won't read them out for the sake of time, but these involve.
Can I suggest you've got a representative, and we've got more than one representative on the working group, that you give you 25 points to one of your representatives on the working group for them to feed in for you, because that's how other people in other groups have fed in. I think that would be the best thing to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's my point on that.
Thank you, Councillor John. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Just to point out to Councillor Clark, 30 minutes for a debate, correct? But for any amendment, you do get extra 15 minutes to do the amendment if that's what happens. So, okay, we're cutting time down from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. And I do agree with your point that maybe, you know, it's not enough, but we are here to try and speed up the meeting, trying to get meetings shortened. Not too short, but short and long, you know, shorter than they are at the moment. And my view is that, again, the times for speaking and winding up, etc., were all agreed by the working party, no objections whatsoever.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And again, I concur with what Councillor Wright says. The whole point of looking at this was to make meetings more business-like, more effective, more efficient, and to actually get business done. You know, we've had full councils where we haven't heard all motions. Although we did agree as a working group that we would keep the order the same and motions still come at the end. But I can imagine the frustration that is normally your party as well, whose motions don't get heard, which is why we've tried to cut down on those times to reduce and get everything done. Let me pass over to Marge Howard. Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest Keith, just the general follow-up,
Yeah.
and I'll pick up Councillor Pearson's specific point about
yes.
on protocol.
If I just covered, Chair, just any points that just points of clarity, as opposed to obviously there's a political debate taking place as well, and clearly I think it's worth making the point that the working group were mindful, and it goes back to Councillor Wright's last comments there, the notion of having a balance basically between reducing the time in order to get all of the business done and people not feeling like their motion that was brought forward wasn't going to be dealt with. So I think the members of the working group now, I've tried to capture that within that table, that there was a balance basically. There was a recognition that 30 minutes might be tight, but equally there was a recognition that we're getting that many motions that some are being deferred to future meetings, which people are unhappy about as well. Just to cover the point about the recording of members' interest, Councillor Cullen, that would still get covered within the minutes of the meeting. So when someone does declare an interest, we're very clear if they've had to leave the meeting as a result of that. And our advice would always be if someone does have an interest, they leave the meeting at the start of that item anyway, and that's what the minutes would record. This was about a different issue, which has been covered earlier in the meeting. The reason why we're seeking to no longer have that was there's a resource requirement. It's quite difficult, if you can imagine, to have somebody from our team sitting there trying to work out who's left the room at any occasion and time in them and stuff like that. So there was a recognition that with the agreement of that rule, it did come with some resource implications really. So the group recognised that and they felt that the issue had died away largely. In terms of the councillor speaking time and the fact that your group, for example, is quite small, don't capture that within the body of the table there. So it's very clear that Councillor Coward expressed those concerns. And again, it was the other members who and not necessarily just the ruling group, I do need to make that point. There was other members within the working group who were very clear to make the point, well, the whole point of what we're doing is to try to get a balance really. So just go through if there's any further points of clarity. Just the point Councillor Wright had said about Councillor Carr not being there, so he wasn't there at the initial meetings, but he was there at last meeting, and that's how I've captured what his concerns were within that as well. I think there was a point that Councillor Wheeler made about the ordering of questions, and clearly that's outside of the constitution. Really, I think that's a matter of practice and also some tradition, as you pointed out as well. But no doubt it'll be something that'll get considered going forward. I think that was largely it, Chair, in terms of what I can comment on. Other than just to add that point, we did look at the practice of elsewhere. We were asked to do that. We were asked to come out with a range of councils and not just county councils. So the point was, to look at it, different types of political balance and stuff like that. So it wasn't all just about councils that share this.
Wasn't the criticism with you, Keith?
No. And I just wanted to make the point, 30 minutes isn't the lowest that we've seen in terms of motion. So some of them are as low as 15 minutes. And I completely hear what you're saying in terms of whether that's workable.
With Nigel's explanations as well.
Yeah.
Monitoring officer?
I learned from the best. What can I say?
Thank you.
I think that was it for as far as I go.
I'll just pick Councillor Pearson's point. So we've circulated to the working group copies of the document in relation to the current member code of conduct, current member officer protocol, the procedure for investigation, there's a flow chart as well. I think I shared some documents with you as well. Questions have been asked from outside of the working group, but we've included it on the list of things for the working group to consider about freedom of speech, about clarity, and that very point you made about balancing that. So that we're going to speak to the working group at the next meeting, which I think is next week, about remember all those documents, and that will include the discussion on freedom of speech.
Okay.
It was about being clear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marge. Okay, so we will now move to the vote on the original recommendation at page 62 of the agenda pack. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? You say it's been lost. Okay.
It's another fine mess you've got me into.
So I think we'll have, in the circumstances, we'll have to go back to the working group would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Marge. Okay, let's move to agenda item 9, which is employer pension discretion policy.
My shift change.
I formally move the recommendation included on page 103 of the agenda pack that the implementation of the revised employer pension discretion policy be approved. Do I have a second, please?
You do, Chair. I'll second and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I will now hand over to Marge Howard to introduce the report.
Thank you, members. So this is to seek approval to make changes to the existing employers' pension discretion policy. So for those of you who don't know what one of those is, we are.
Trips off the tongue.
It really does that, doesn't it? We are members of the LGPS, the Local Government Pension Scheme, which has a whole set of rules and a framework of things we're bound by. But there are also some decisions which are left to employers who are members of the scheme to have their own policy and their own approach to. So it is those that we are talking about. You're required to have a policy, you're required to set it down in writing, and obviously those who are members of the scheme and others need to be able to view that and look at it. So for example, if a member of staff is wanting to make a decision about who they want to retire, they need to be able to access and look at those expressions and then, before they make their decision. So we've got an existing policy, we're required to review it and keep it up to date, so that's what we've done, and this is the output from that. To try and be clearer, to be robust in our decision making, and to be greater consistency, to ensure that it's a fair application, because obviously it's a critical element of this. We strengthened the decision-making process around it in the proposals. So decisions will now, around the exercise of this discretion, will now be initially need to be supported by an executive director. Then they will go to pay board, which is looking across, it's an officer panel for that, looking across the council, and it will be looking at how have we exercised this across the council so that we ensure equity and consistency. And then the final decision will be signed off by Nigel as the 151 and myself as the monitoring officer. So we're looking at the costs, we're looking at the value for money, we're having equity and fairness and consistency in how people are treated. So that's what we've got here, and that's the document that's included.
Thank you, Marge. I would now like to invite views and questions from members, please. Okay. We'll move to the vote on the recommendation at page 103 of the agenda pack. All those in favour? Is that agreed? Okay. So moving to agenda item 10, additional leave provisions for council workforce and carers. I formally move the recommendation included on page 122 of the agenda pack that the committee approve the implementation of carers policy incorporating provision for paid leave for employees who are carers. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll now hand over to Marge Tower to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this relates to employees who are carers. So that could be carers, foster carers, that could be kinship carers, shared life carers, unpaid carers, caring for and providing support to adults and children with long-term conditions and disabilities. And we've obviously got a number of employees within our workforce who are undertaking those roles. As a council, we have approved the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire All Age Carers Strategy, and we've been part of a paid carers leave campaign, which is a national campaign to support support for those carers. What we're proposing here is an extension of what we've already got. So foster carers already get 5 days extra paid leave, but we're proposing to extend that to that broader group that I've just set out. It's really important, this policy, because it makes things better for carers, for our employees who are carers. They can fulfil their caring obligations better. They're working better because they're not worried about it. We're supporting them to enable them to work. It is better for the people being cared for. When you look at fostering, for example, children have better outcomes if they're fostered in the family and cared for in the family, rather than if they're going to get into residential care. It's better for us as a council because it is cheaper for us to pay for a foster carer and give somebody 5 days paid leave in a whole year to care for that person. It's better value for money. It's better because it makes us an employer of choice, able to attract and retain really good quality employees, which is really important. We're in a competition now for the best employees, and it aligns with the ambitions set out in the council plan and in the all age carer strategy that I've described. So that's why it's a good thing to do, and that's why we recommend it to you.
Thank you very much, Marge. I'd now like to open that up to invite views and questions from members. Councillor Wheeler.
Yes, I really welcome this. I was a bit of work started when I was in the previous role, and I actually went and met a lot of our workforce who are unpaid carers, and obviously the wider caring community. I think not only is it the right thing to do for our employees anyway, but also there is that financial actually benefit to us, because people having to take time off work by taking time off work means not having to get external care potentially that they're entitled to, etc. And which actually, unpaid carers, we have a society overall. Actually, when they say the economy has never been, I think, really properly appreciated, and those carers are doing that because they generally want to care for relatives and friends, not because of the financial side. But anything we can do to give that support also means hopefully that our member staff are able to then focus and not be as worried if they are when they are working here and they've got the time off to give that correct care. So I really think it's something we should embrace and vote for, and happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Any further questions, please? Councillor John.
I'd also like to say that this is a great because it helps to support Nottinghamshire strategic plan, which is about strong families and encouraging more carers hopefully to get into fostering and kinship caring.
Thank you, Councillor John. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Wright.
I welcome this wholeheartedly. I think it's wonderful that we're doing extra things for our employees. It enhances the reputation of this council as a good employer, and I think it's money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further questions? Councillor Adoki.
Yeah, I do support this as well. I think it's really appropriate, and it's in the best interest of our residents and staff as well, and the carers, So it's a very good job that we've done, and I want to actually congratulate us and Marge for that through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Adoki. Any further questions? Okay. We'll now move to the vote on the recommendation at page 122 of the agenda pack. All those in favour? I think that's agreed. Right, we move to the last agenda item, which is number 11, the work programme for 2025-26. Are there any amendments to the work programme? No. Okay. So is that agreed? Fabulous. I will now formally close the meeting. Please stop the broadcast.